Go for it. Here we go. I'm sitting comfortably.
Greetings, viewer. Or should I say, hello, hello. It's good to be back. Yes, because it's that auspicious day. Well, the auspicious day's been and gone, but we haven't heard about it yet.
2 of them.
So we need to hand over to Ben. Now, the thing is, going back a few minutes ago, I did say to Ben, we must be careful on our channel not to talk too much about a certain band because it might get a bit boring and some people might not like them. But then this band decided to get back together. So then we had to talk about them.
And it turns out that everybody
And
likes
so that
them.
everyone wants to talk about them. So Ben was actually at the gig the other night.
I was.
I wasn't at the gig because I was
You were.
half a world away, or at least
He was.
half a country away, here in the Midlands. So we're going to get the horse's mouth view from Ben. I had got some of the references in here, Ben, and I forgot to put them in there. Because I was going to say, hello, hello. Do you know what I mean? I didn't say, do you know what I mean?
Oh dear.
But I am going to acquiesce to all of your desires and let you.
It's like waiting for the rapture.
And let you talk as much as you like tonight, or whenever people are watching this video. So, without any further ado, I'm going to allow you, before your memories fade away, to tell us all about it. So just go let it out.
Just talk tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just roll with it.
Yeah.
Even though it's not nighttime, it's clearly daytime. But hey ho, hey ho. Or what I will do, Phil Stewart, I'll tell you how I feel now.
Yeah.
And then I will read. You've already read it, but I will read to our listeners my actual jotted down thought.
I'm glad I made a cup of tea because it's quite a long one, folks.
It is quite a long one, but from the moment I woke up, and we know what I was like the moment I woke up because I posted a video of it. Me and you then did a show. And to be fair, people have said to me, "Are you really, really excited?" And I kind of wasn't because I've seen them before. I've seen them in their pomp and in their heyday. But obviously, a bit like Christmas, you kind of, the nearer it comes, the more the anticipation sort of builds. So by the time me and my brother got to Cardiff, and you saw the first bucket hat walking past, you were like, "Oh, this is going to be good." And walking up to the ground, or to the Principality, there was just a really good atmosphere from everybody. Almost like everybody knew that they were, and they were at the start of something great. Even though that greatness has already been before, I suppose it's, to use an old analogy, the second coming. But it was, just walking up to the ground, that anticipation starts building. And me and my brother were just, I'll tell you what, I love my brother to bits. And I have not laughed as much as I have for a long time with my brother. He's absolutely bonkers. But yeah, everything about that, from the first moment that All Right came on from Cass, it was, this is happening. This is actually happening. I've been pensive about it for a little while because sometimes things are better left. Sometimes they're better left, and are you ever going to recreate what's been before? But I suppose with their solo careers and that, they've never been away. But yeah, from the moment that sort of thing came up on the screen, this is not a drill. At that moment, my spine tingled. This went into a massive grin. And to be fair, it did actually, in parts, I felt a little bit emotional because, again, we are men of a certain age. This is all about our youth. And to sort of think, oh God, this is, from start to finish, dude, it was just amazing. The performance, the songs, there's everything in that set list that you'd want to hear. there's a few omissions that maybe would have liked to have heard, a few from the later albums and stuff, but they went in with the bangers. And it was just, I've been to Oasis gigs before, and you always get that sort of, at Wembley, etc. You always get that sort of element of bellends and bucket hats. There was such a good vibe around the stadium with the people. Me and my brother were talking to some people from America. They'd flown in for the gig from America.
Wow.
There was a couple from Mexico who had flown all the way in from Mexico to watch it. So it was a real coming together of people, and there was just something. When I go and watch the mighty Coventry, when I go to Wembley and when I'm at the Rico, I like to look around and see how the moment is sort of affecting people. And there was a bloke in front of us who's a little bit older than me and my brother, but he was with his son. His son must have been in his 20s, and when certain songs came in, they embraced like they hadn't seen each other for years. And it was amazing to sort of see that this little band from Manchester that started, 35 years ago, unites, without sounding too philosophical about it all, but it was uniting like different generations of people, and seeing the effect it had on people was, it was great. And for me and my brother to be singing together as well was, like my brother said, it was two legendary brothers watching two legendary brothers. So, it was just the whole experience, the whole thing. And then coming out, and there was this guy on drums coming out the stadium, just play it. And everybody's like a massive party atmosphere. I have not been to a gig with that sort of environment before. It was amazing. And that's about as well as I can sum it up. I will read my thing in a bit, but that's my thoughts of it as it stands today. And I'm glad I went to the first one, because every other gig from now on, and I am a little bit jealous of other people going to the other gigs, but you can never recreate the first time.
No, I think that's the thing. That really was an occasion, wasn't it? And as you say,
Yeah.
and it's interesting, isn't it? Because as you say, they haven't been away. It's not as if they either Noel or Liam did a Kate Bush and vanished for 10 years.
No. Oasis are more popular now than they were in their heyday. They haven't released a record since 2008.
Yeah, and I also the songs have not gone away either, because it's not as if they went onto their solo careers and stopped doing Oasis songs. Both of them have been performing a lot of these big Oasis songs at their gigs.
Yeah.
So even though the characters were still around, the songs were still around, there's something about the fact that they've got together under the Oasis brand suddenly makes it. It's interesting, isn't it? How powerful that is.
Yeah, and I think obviously you've got these legendary duos throughout history, sort of Lennon McCartney's and Richards and Jaggers. There is something when you've got a partnership, and probably especially more when you've got brothers, that you can't recreate that. There's something, like you say, even though and we can all recreate, anybody who can play a guitar can recreate an Oasis song. Just as much you can recreate a Beatles song, etc. But there's something about that, that unity, between, people say Lennon and McCartney were never, they were great after they split up, but you kind of lose something. You lose that sort of brotherhood, really, I think, And it was just, from the moment it started to the moment it finished. I mean, I've been at gigs before where it's like, how much longer have we got to go? It got to the point where I was like, I hope they do a Foo Fighters and take on the Fine and go on for another hour.
I was going to ask this, because my experience of the show, I experienced it vicariously through you and through reading stuff about it. And while it was going on, because they came on, was it about 8 o'clock, just after 8 o'clock on the Friday night?
The screen went on about, I think on my phone it was 8:13 p.m.
Right. Yeah, I think I read it was 8:15. Anyway, I was sitting at home watching Emma Raducanu play tennis, right? But I also had my mobile phone, and I was looking at the Setlist updates, because I'm a geek about Setlists.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh yeah, they started with let's call it "In the Bushes" being played over the PA,
Yeah,
and then okay, so that's what you predicted. So I thought, oh, Ben's right with that one, and then it was "Hello," so I thought, oh well, yeah, that kind of works, doesn't it? It's good to be back.
yeah, yeah,
So, and then I was looking every now and again, I was looking to see which songs have been added, and I was thinking, wow, this is some set list, because every song is going to be one that people are completely singing along to.
yeah,
And
yeah.
there was,
And it was every song. They could have just played the backing track, and everybody would have. I mean, I think it was during. Was it Acquiesce? Yeah, Acquiesce. Noel, I think it was Acquiesce. One of them. Noel just stood away from and Liam did it in a couple of songs. Just let the crowd sing it. It was, yeah, every single song, there wasn't a moment where the whole place wasn't singing.
yeah. I mean, it seems. I know you could, because I liked it when people pull out rare songs and stuff like that, but
Yeah, yeah,
I think that's not really the occasion for this, because they wanted to make it absolutely banging all the way through, and I can see the logic in
yeah,
choosing what they did. But just looking at some of these, I was really pleased to see "Bring It On Down," because I've always liked "Bring It On
yeah,
Down,"
yeah.
and
Fade Away. That was
Fade.
a great one to throw in.
Yeah, because that was a big one from the very early days, wasn't it? They used to play that on stage a lot
Yeah,
early on,
yeah, yeah,
when they didn't have many songs.
yeah,
And then, well, I tell you what, before the show, I went for a walk earlier that evening, and I had my earphones on, and I listened to the '96 Nebworth live album.
yeah.
And one of the songs that came up on that was "Roll With It." And
Yes.
I've always had this thought that "Roll With It," not the best single, bit bored of it,
No, Noel
got
even
better.
says that, doesn't he?
But
He's not a
then,
massive fan.
and then when it comes on, you start listening to it, the live version in your headphones. You think, wow, it's brilliant. You
Yeah.
just really
Oh,
enjoy it. So I can
Roll
see
With It
why.
live is
Yeah,
Roll With It and Little by Little are two songs that are far better live than they are recorded. I don't think you could. I think mainly because of the audience participation, because you can't recreate that in the studio.
yeah,
You know, y- what definitely maybe was basically recorded live, because I don't think you can recreate it all separated.
no.
But yeah, Roll With It was mega. There wasn't a bad track in it. Liam's voice was the best I've heard it live.
It did sound good on the little clips I've seen and heard,
Yeah,
including
yeah,
the ones you
yeah.
sent me. It sounded, yeah, it did. I mean, it didn't sound like there was any deterioration really to me. Um, so there was this is one thing I was going to ask. There was basically no lull at all in the middle of this
No,
show. Not at all.
it
Not
was it was full on 100 miles an hour for the whole time. There was no. They had a couple of little bits of banter, nothing major, not like normal. I suppose it's it, but it was 100. That's one of my first initial thoughts. Like the first four tracks went through, and I said to my brother, I was just like, wow, what a start! It's just, you know,
it did. I did get the impression that they were kind of heads down. Let's go through it. They weren't going to mess around talking too much or anything. They were probably a teeny little bit nervous. They probably
yeah, yeah,
wanted to make
because
sure they got it done well.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Because if Friday night had been a disaster, say Liam's voice had gone out, or then that then sets a thingy for the rest of the tour. Now for the rest of the tour, it doesn't really matter. Well, it does matter, but it's as long as you get that. Like I say, you can never recreate the first time, And I kind of hope now. I think I wouldn't be surprised if they don't do Nebworth next year, because I think they would like to knock Robbie Williams off of his perch of 3 successive nights.
Yeah, it was three.
Um,
Was it? It was three. Right. Okay.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Don't. Yeah. So, but
Which they can
I.
easily do. It's
Oh
not
God,
gonna...
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I would like to think that they would maybe record some new material, so that those kids who were there, and I say kids, young adults and that. I mean, there was there was kids like 10, 11 years old, going mad for it, literally. But just so that, and I'll come to it in my readings in a minute about the state of the modern rock band, etc. But just to give them something that we had back in the 90s, that anticipation of a great album. But then I don't think it'll be the same anyway, because you'll have all that hype, like what Be Here Now had. Once the hype gets involved, you could pull out the greatest album ever, but it's never ever going to live up to the hype that precedes it. So
no, it would be very difficult for them to put out a new album.
Yeah,
Maybe they will. Who knows?
you never know. And it will be another one to add to my collection, because guess what Silly Nuts did the other day?
Did you buy some more Oasis material?
I did, because on Thursday they have announced the 30th anniversary remastered edition of What's the Story Morning Glory.
Oh, I saw that they've done that. Yeah.
Yeah, an album I have on 3 or 4 CDs, 4 vinyls, if not more, cassettes. So I've bought another copy of it.
Another remastering. Will it sound any better than it did before?
No, because my ears will only hear what it hears. And unless I've got the other one at the same time, which I can sort of go, oh yeah, that sounds a little bit different, I won't know, Phil.
Are they going to have unreleased versions of the song?
There's there's some live, is it live stuff or unreleased demos or something on there of a couple of tracks? I can't remember the full listing. I'd have to have a look at it. But yeah, there is some other stuff on there. But it only seems, I was going to say like yesterday, but it does only seem like 5 years ago. I was on the 25th anniversary limited edition. So, yeah, see how much more it gets milked as the years go on. But Silly Nuts here will still buy it. But yeah, and one thing we found out as well, me and my brother found out yesterday, was my cousin was at the gig and only about 10 rows in front of us.
Really?
Yeah, didn't know he was going, and we only found out yesterday. So
that's mad.
But yeah, the whole experience was brilliant, and the sad thing is, it's a bit like, and when I went to the FA Cup semi-final the other year, and Coventry scored that 4th goal, and I have never celebrated or had such a sort of celebrationary raw moment of emotion as I did that day. The sad thing for me of it all, and there's not a lot of sad things to say about Friday, is, well, unless they split up again, that I'll never get that moment recreated. That first, I was watching it before he came on, the bit where it comes up, this is not a drill, and I'll never get that feeling again. And that's kind of sad in a way. But it's better to have loved and to have lost than to have never loved at all, isn't it? So
yeah.
That's what I'm going with. Do you want me to read what my thoughts were, which I sent to you, which I had to...
I think you should read it. Could you bear with me just one sec? I'll be back in a moment before you read your thing out.
Here we go. Where's he going? See the no expenses spare sign there. Here he goes.
Because I know it's quite...
well, because he's only got pants
It's
on,
quite long.
It is quite long.
So,
have you got your pillow?
Yeah. Enjoy it, viewers. See you on the other side.
Right, here we go then, people. Don't be put off by sleeping Dr. Evil. This is basically what I sent to Phil yesterday. Was it yesterday? It was yesterday, wasn't it? I sent this to Phil yesterday, and I won't tell you where I wrote most of it, but I was doing an act in the morning that most men do, and I wrote it out. It was grammatically awful, so I had to run it through a grammar app just to make sure my grammar was in place. But if you're sitting comfortably, I shall begin. So my thoughts were: one band, 2 brothers, 75,000 voices. The morning after the night before, and I'm still lost for words. Was it all hype? Was it worth the wait? course it bloody was. From the first chords of Cast's All Right through the eternal echo of Bittersweet Symphony to the final aching fade of Champagne Supernova, this wasn't just a gig. It was a resurrection, a reminder, a reckoning. It was everything the world's been crying out for. Raw, honest, unapologetic music that cuts through the noise and reaches into your soul. Music that unites strangers in the dark, which it did. You know, the couple from America, me and my, oh dear, I'd have to tell you that off air because it was so funny. Screaming lyrics like their prayers for 2 hours, 75,000 people were not just fans. We were one voice, one heartbeat, one moment in time that we'll never get back, but we'll never forget. Which is basically what I said earlier. So, this is what we've missed. Bands that mean something. Bands that carry our youth, our fears, our joy, and our rebellion. Bands that you can pin your hopes and heartbreaks on. And as much as me and Phil sometimes wish that we were young again, I personally wouldn't trade growing up in that era, the 90s, for anything. Because if you're young today, starved of rock and roll, that speaks your language, I just hope you felt last night the way we did, that you saw the light too. When a band that stormed into the scene in 1994 is still the band in 2025, it tells you everything you need to know. Oasis wasn't just the sound of a generation. They're the sound of every generation that longs for the truth in a song and the salvation in a chorus. Last night was more than music. It was a memory, magic and meaning, all wrapped up in one thunderous, beautiful mess. To witness that reunion, my band, my music, my dreams come to life will live with me forever. And to share that moment with people who felt just as deeply, especially my best friend and brother, that's something that no words can fully hold. So no matter your taste, your bias, your time of birth, Oasis are a band for the people, made by people like us. The best there was, the best there is, and the best there ever will be.
Well, viewer, what can we say? I didn't know you had so many words in your vocabulary, Ben.
Nor did I do, but sometimes when I need to be deep and meaningful, I can be deep and meaningful. Because normally I'm shallower than a puddle in the desert. So
I wasn't going to say anything, but yeah.
No. Yeah, but it is, I mean, what I was trying to get at, what made me write it was the fact that there isn't any band today. There isn't a movement. I was talking to somebody about it. I think it was one of the security guys, and even he had to agree with me because otherwise I'd punch his face in. But there isn't a band. There's no Blur versus Oasis anymore. There's no band anymore that sort of, well, rock and roll music isn't what it was 30 years. And I know times move on, but even so, there should be a voice for the generation.
Yeah,
and
there
isn't anything anymore. Because rock and roll bands are the youth movement's voice, aren't they? They're the people that form bands that get out the doldrums of where they were. And they're our voice. They're the voice in 3-chord melodies that we can't speak. And the 1975 aren't going to do that for you.
No, and this is it. There isn't really. There are bands that have a bit of a following, but they're not as big across the board. It's difficult to see whether a band can come along that can be that big ever again with the the fragmented culture that we've got now.
No, and you've got the disposability of music now. I mean, the only band I suppose that's come close, and I don't even think they came anywhere near as close in the last sort of 20, and it is 20 years, is the Arctic Monkeys, and they've gone off and done posh lift music. So there isn't, but the fact is, it's 2025. 1995 was a long time ago, and the fact that this summer is being billed as the Oasis summer, the Pulp summer. You've got all these bands coming back together, Supergrass, etc. It just says that it's great, but it's also quite sad at the same time.
Well, there was also, because I should say out of respect to all the heavy metal fans, there was also a big thing last night with Black Sabbath and Ozzy. And this is another area where, when you think of all the acts, most of the acts that were there, well, I've only read about it, but you had Guns N' Roses and Slayer, and were Metallica there, and Steven Tyler from Aerosmith was there, and all these bands. A lot of these are bands that were, 30, 40 years ago. And I know there are still heavy metal bands, but even there aren't any heavy metal bands now that have achieved the success of Metallica or hard rock bands like Guns N' Roses that have been that big in the culture. So
even things like Rage Against the Machine are 30 plus years old.
Yeah, exactly. So I know there are younger bands and there are bands that have got a following now, but those bands are not going to break through and be household names in the way that these older bands were. So, yeah, I don't know whether can it happen again. We're in this era at the moment of the music industry is liking individual solo pop stars. Partly because, of course, they are easier to control than a band. Because if you've got a pop star and you can control them, that's fine. If you've got a band, you've got 3, 4, 5 people that you've got to have under control, and that makes it more difficult.
And solo artists can't split up with themselves.
They can't split up with themselves. So as long as you've got them doing what you want, then it's easier to manage them.
Well, I don't think you can. I think you'll still have bands come through, but I don't think you're going to have bands that come through in the way that the Beatles did, the Stones did, the Smiths did, Oasis did. I just don't think that's ever... Because music's too disposable these days. You're not as unless you're, somebody like yourself who's invested in an album, who will listen to it. You'll get 2 tracks and you'll skip to the next album. People aren't as invested anymore. And that was one good thing about Friday was, a lot of, probably 30% of the people there probably weren't even born when 1995 became a year. But they're invested in something they've never seen live before, and that was kind of, brilliant, really. But then I suppose if the Beatles reformed, people would be the same, because it's bands. There's not bands that capture the imagination anymore, is there? That's the thing. They're all, you look at the 1975 Inhaler. They're all people who've had, their parents were famous, or there are
a few of those around now, aren't there? Yes.
Yeah. It's like when you get footballers coming through whose parents were footballers. I'm not saying it's nepotism or anything like that, but there's not a band coming up who was stacking shelves in Sainsbury's the week before they got signed, I suppose is what I'm trying to say. They're not of the people, for the people, by the people, with the people. If that makes any sense whatsoever.
It'll be interesting to see how long it is before another band comes along, if it ever happens, if another band does do that. But it would take quite a big change. It would take quite a big change. There would have to be a complete turnaround in music, wouldn't there, really? We'd have to go back. People would have to get bored of what there is now and go back to it. But maybe it can never come back.
I don't think you can ever go back. We'll never go back to having polio or gonorrhea or syphilis and stuff like that. I just don't. I think once you've kind of capped it off, I don't think you can reopen the valve.
Maybe it's like the big band era with Benny Goodman and Duke Ellington and all that big band era, Glenn Miller. That kind of was partly killed off by the Second World War as much as anything. But the music is still popular with certain people. There are still bands that do that kind of music. There's still people making that sort of music, but it's not as common as it was. It's not the music of the people anymore. It's just a niche interest. And is that what guitar bands are going to end up being, a niche interest compared and not the mainstream?
Yeah, basically, yeah. I think if you have a look at it now, name me a guitar band from the last 5 years that are selling out stadiums.
Oh, that came in the last. Yeah, I can't think of any that are selling out stadiums in the last 5 years that I can think of.
There just isn't that anymore, and no one's. To me personally, my personal opinion is that nobody's got a message anymore, and they're not even regurgitating not the old messages. There's not tracks like Rock and Roll Star and stuff like Slide Away and Live Forever. Those tracks, bands just don't write that sort of, because they aren't coming from a council estate in wherever it is that council estate may be. I'm not saying that you have to come from a council estate to be able to write music like that, but they haven't already been born into the industry or etc. So, but all that aside, Phil, Friday was mega. We got back about 2:30. My brother had a little sleep all the way home. I wired myself with a packet of Jelly Babies, a caffeine tablet, and a coffee. And all I could say, the way home, I was like that.
I was going to ask about this Oasis. Well, there's a few different questions I was going to ask. I did ask whether there was a lull at any point in the middle of the show. Obviously, there wasn't.
No.
There was people there from Mexico. I did see on the news actually some people from Mexico as well that were there. And
did you have a red hat on?
I can't remember. I mean, I think there was probably more than one. For a second on the BBC News, they were showing people going in, and for a second, a flash, I thought I'd seen you, because there was a guy with a beard who had the same hat as you and the same T-shirt as you. I thought, is that Ben? But then there were lots of people with those T-shirts and hats on, so I thought actually probably wasn't him. I was just seeing the outfit.
By the time I got to the ground, I had swapped hats with my brother. I had taken the bucket off because my head's too massive.
It wasn't you. Then definitely wasn't you that I saw going in.
But it might be my brother. If he was next to a gentleman with a pink Coventry City cap on.
It wasn't your brother. Wasn't as good looking as that. It was either you or some other ugly bloke. Yeah. I'm just winding you up, man.
I know, but I'm hurt still.
Now, there's been 2 dates in Cardiff. They did last night as well. They did Friday and the Saturday night. A few days' time, they're doing Manchester, and there's 5 shows in Manchester at Heaton Park. I don't know how
back to back though, are they?
No, there's 11 and 12, 16th, 19th, and 20th. So they're doing Manchester. I don't know how big Heaton Park is. I don't know how many people are going to get into that. So
it's big. I saw the Stone Roses there in 2013.
And then there's Wembley, and then there's 5 shows initially at Wembley in late July and early August. And all of this is with the same support. This is still Cast and Richard Ashcroft as the support.
Yeah, both were excellent. Richard Ashcroft was brilliant, Richard, and Cast were really, really good as well. Cast were obviously, the sound's not as good for the support acts.
Was it a fine time for Cast?
It was a fine time. Yeah. He was really good. John Power was really good. Yeah.
And did Richard Ashcroft give you a song for the Lovers?
He did give us a song for the Lovers. He did Lucky Man. Did he do Sonnet?
He started with Sonnet, if I remember reading that correctly.
Yes, he did. Yeah. And then, but Bittersweet Symphony. What a track! What a track! That was spine tingling having that going.
I presume that was his closer, was it?
That was the closer. Yeah. And now he gets the royalties from it.
Yeah. Was that right? He doesn't go to Alan Klein's Abco anymore.
No. Well, after his death, it was going to Jagger and Richards. Well, yeah, because it was the songwriting credit went to Jagger and Richards, and I think in 2019 they gave the songwriting credit back to Richard Ashcroft. I don't think they gave him the royalties. They reckon it's about £5 million in royalties up until that point. That song had.
Okay, so he gets them from now on, but he doesn't get what they'd got before.
No, but.
Sounds like Mick Jagger business decision. Yeah, he doesn't give it away easily.
But I mean, when you look into that Bittersweet Symphony lawsuit, the bit that they got the publishing right, the songwriting credit and everything on, which took all the money away from the verb, it's such a small section in that song.
Well, wasn't it also originally?
Yeah, it was from a
It
band.
was from. It wasn't from the Rolling Stones' original version of the song. It was from an
No.
orchestra version of it.
Yes.
That had been done. And so when this orchestra version was done, it was credited to Jagger and Richards. But it's not, that bit is not in the original Rolling Stones
Original
arrangement.
song, no. And the guy who did who arranged the orchestra and stuff, who put that bit in, didn't get a songwriting credit or none of the royalties.
It's mad, isn't it?
Yeah. And it is such a small snippet of song. And you think the whole Bittersweet Symphony song, the lyrics, everything, is so much more than that. It's less than a few seconds, that the snippet that they've got the credit on. So, yeah, what a song. And you know what was good as well is there wasn't massive gaps between sets. So Castor on at 6, they were done by, I think they only played for half an hour or so. And then Richard Ashcroft was on at 7. He was done by 7:45, just after. And then Oasis were on half an hour after that.
Now,
it's a nice quick turnaround, just enough time to get down to the toilet for the 38th time.
So they do Wembley. There's 5 nights at Wembley into early August. Then they're going to Edinburgh. There's 3 nights at Murrayfield Stadium.
Yeah, my next door neighbour's going to the Edinburgh gig.
Dublin, then it's Croke Park. That's be another big outdoor one, isn't it?
Yeah.
So there's 2 shows in Dublin, and then they're going over the Atlantic, and it kicks off in Toronto. So this is the Rogers Stadium. Is that a baseball stadium or a football stadium?
Must
I don't
be,
know what that is.
It's got to be, hasn't it?
And then the support act over there is Cage the Elephant, whom I don't know much about, but I know one of my musician friends was a big fan of them and says they're brilliant. But I don't know. I say one of my musician friends. I should say a friend of mine who's a musician, because I'm not really a proper musician. It makes me sound like I'm a musician for a second there, doesn't it?
I can play the claves.
As close as I get to being one. And then, so they've got Chicago, Soldier Field. Was that somewhere that the Beatles played? I think it is. And then we've got New Jersey, MetLife Stadium. Then they're going to California.
Yeah, I wonder if that's where my friend Donna's going to watch them at, because she's going.
That seems to be the East Coast. Well, the one in the middle, the Midwest, is Chicago. Then they're going to this one in New Jersey. That seems to be the only East Coast show. And then the West Coast, there's Pasadena, which is basically LA, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then it's Mexico City. So there's 2 shows in Mexico City. So are they? This is what I was going to ask you. There's Mexican people there. Are they particularly big in Mexico?
Yeah, South America. I mean, the Argentinians go mad for them in Argentina.
I know that when these major American or British acts go to Latin America, they do seem to get an enormous reception over there. Perhaps it's because there's not as many doing tours there, and so it's a big deal when they do.
Because aren't they doing Australia as well?
Yeah, that's at the end. So then they're coming back to London, because they added these on, didn't they? 2 more Wembley.
Yeah, the extra Wembley gigs in September, aren't they?
So that's Cast and Ashcroft again for that. Cage the Elephant is all the way through the Americas. And then at the end of October, they got Japan, where there's no listed support act as yet. Sorry, Korea and then Japan. 3 shows in total, and then 3 shows in Melbourne, starting on the 31st of October. The support act in Australia is called Ballpark Music. I've never heard of it.
No.
So there's 3 shows in Melbourne, 2 shows in Sydney, and then it's Argentina. Got Buenos Aires, 2 shows in Buenos Aires. No support acts listed for this yet. Santiago, Chile, and then Brazil, 2 in Sao Paulo in Brazil. So that's going to be big, isn't it?
Massive.
But they've not announced anything further ahead than that. It's just this
year.
I
wouldn't. Yeah, I would not be surprised if they don't do Nebworth. Because next year will be the 30th anniversary of Nebworth.
Yeah.
So I think it's got to be on the cards.
So Liam and Noel, I gather, at the end had a little bit of a teeny bit of a hug.
A hug, yeah. They came on holding hands.
Really? No.
Yeah, they came on holding hands and then gave it a big.
Oh, right, okay.
Still... Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So, and then I gather did Liam actually say something about he wanted to get some kip or something? Or
I think he'd said beforehand because that with his gigs, because he doesn't party anymore. When he finishes, he likes us to get out, back home, get some kit.
Yeah, and he got in a car right after and was driven off.
Yeah, that was the report.
Did a bit of an Elvis. And that was it. So Liam has left the building. And does anybody know? Is he having? Are him and Noel hanging out together at all outside of these shows, or are they having minimal contact on the basis that we might fall out with each other, so we won't see each other too much, so we don't, risk it? Is that what they're doing? I don't know.
Don't know.
I suppose we'll never really completely know, will we?
No, and I don't think you would be able to tour for that amount of time unless and give out the attitude and the energy if you were faking it.
Yeah, I mean the Everly Brothers did this.
There's 800 million reasons to fake it, I suppose.
The Everly Brothers did this, where they toured, and this is they sang these close harmonies. They had to be close on stage, but they were travelling in separate vehicles, staying in separate places. It was they had nothing to do with each other until the moment they came onto the stage. Well, after they fell out with each other, which I'm not sure exactly when that was, but they did, for quite a while. I saw the Everly Brothers in 1990 with my dad, and they seemed really old at the time, but they were probably only in their 40s or something, or about 50 maybe at that point.
That's crazy. So 1990. Let's see how old they were in 1990.
I don't know how old they were, but apparently at that time they were. I mean, you wouldn't have known from the way they acted on stage, but apparently they didn't have anything to do with each other outside the shows.
Let's have a look. Everly.
And for anyone younger viewers who don't know who the Everly Brothers were, they were basically the prototype for Lennon and McCartney, weren't they? Because their harmony style is what John and Paul more or less imitated.
Don Everly died in 2021.
Yeah.
So in 1990, he would have been 53.
Okay. Yeah,
is that right?
They were around. Probably, yeah.
So he was 53. So he would have been the same. Well, Liam Gallagher is 53 this year.
Yeah.
And Phil Everly, who died in 2014, he would have been 51.
Yeah, and I was about 18 or whatever. And when you're about 18, people that are 50 seem really, really old. So
did they ever make up? Because I know they got back together in 2000. Well, they finally stopped performing in 2005. They got together in 1983 to 2005. So they must have made up.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know whether they made. Well, yeah, I honestly don't know enough about them. I don't know whether it was that they made up or whether it was a pure business arrangement because of the demand. I don't know. I really don't know.
Yeah.
I know there was a lot went on.
The brothers who did The Sun Ain't Gonna Shine Anymore.
No, that's the Walker Brothers who
were
not really brothers. The Everly Brothers were real brothers.
No. That's Scott Walker and the other two.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've got a Walker Brothers album.
It's good. I mean, the Walker Brothers is good. But they're not brothers, really.
They're not brothers.
And Scott's solo stuff is arguably as good, if not. Scott's solo stuff went even more arty.
Let's have a look. I'm sure I've got a Walker Brothers album. Walker Brothers, I've got their greatest hits and I've got the Portrait album.
So
there we go. Look at that. We've gone from Oasis to the Walker Brothers.
How did we manage that?
Yeah.
I bet Noel Gallagher likes a bit of Walker Brothers because he likes that kind of kind of stuff, doesn't he?
Well, he loves the Bee Gees, and they were brothers because you don't have that set of grills by accident unless you're all brothers.
Does he? He likes the Bee Gees, does he? Noel Gallagher. Okay.
Yeah, well, his greatest hits album from a couple of years ago, 4 years ago, was it? The front cover of that it's the same colour and hue as the Bee Gees' greatest hits.
Really?
And that's
Okay.
why he did it for, you see.
Okay.
So it's all out of the knowledge filter.
Yeah.
Knowledge.
Well, I think we've pretty much covered it then.
Yeah, I
You
think we've
happy?
done and dusted. No need to speak about them ever again.
Until the next time, until you go in September. Is it possible? Is it not possible to get tickets for that now? I wouldn't have thought so.
I don't know. I am going to try.
Well,
I'm going to see if I can.
If you've got £10,000, I guess it is. But
yeah. I think I've got some hidden in my mate here. Stuff full of cash, so the taxman don't get hold of me.
bare
Can I just say,
necessities.
if HMRC are watching, there is no cash in there. I've got these cushions. I'm in the spare room, and I'm basically using pillows as a backrest. If anybody's wondering what this is, pointing out the back. This is my daughter's bear that I bought her when she was born, and he sits with me. Yeah, I'm a child.
It's quite a groovy backdrop. I like it. Thanks, viewer. Any impressions on Oasis? Any views on it? Thoughts on it? Stick them in the comments. You know where to put them. In the meantime, Thanks for watching. We'll be back with another one very soon. This is Phil and Ben. It's been a full record jacket. Goodbye.